global AI community. So, Sami, can you maybe also tell us a little bit about the global AI community in general, and then start with your talk? Sami, I think you are muted.
Exactly. Thanks for introducing me, Dimitri. And now the roles are different. Now you are the host and I'm the presenter. Yeah, the global AI community. We started a while ago. We're a group of, I think it's almost 14,000 members worldwide with over 1,800 different communities. So that's really nice. We're growing. We see that there's still a lot of time needed and effort needed to introduce people to AI, but also to upgrade their skills to a higher level. So that's what we're trying to do with the global AI community. We organize sessions like this, full day conferences. We have AI talks, which is a weekly session, which that's one I host personally. So for sure, visit globalai.live or globalai.community to find more information about upcoming sessions like this. And we're working on a new website where we're all integrated in one, but more about that in the near future. So, of course, we're not here just to talk about the global AI community. We're talking today about, let me share my screen. Screen 2. Okay. The topic of my talk is help, I can't find what I need. And I'll discuss in a bit exactly why I'm asking that question. Just a little introduction about myself. I work for Arinti, which is a Microsoft AI partner. I'm a Microsoft AI MVP since April this year. And as I said, I'm one of the leaders of the global AI community. All right, so our problem, and now I just see that I'm sharing the wrong screen. My excuses for that. This should be better. Okay, so what is our problem? Well, the issue is that we have within our world, there's a lot of information that is constantly generated. The magazine Forbes recently estimated that the world creates over 2.5 quintillion bytes of new data per day. And data is coming in unstructured formats like PDFs, images, videos, audio files, PowerPoint decks, and so on. And in fact, there's actually 80% of that data that is unstructured. Just take into account a couple of years ago when there was no smartphones, how were we taking pictures? Well, with a classic classic camera, and we just print the pictures. So there's nothing digitally about it. But then we started scanning. Then we had a phone where we could take pictures with. But all this data is saved online, on your phone, on a hard drive, and so on. Now, as a result of collecting all that unstructured data, it can cost time and money to figure out actually what kind of data we have. And we see that, as the slide also says, productivity lost per knowledge worker each year due to information searches is $14,000, and because people lose time in finding data back. Therefore, my topic, help, I can't find what I need. How can we fix this? Well, this we can do by making use of knowledge mining. Now, knowledge mining solutions area focus on the core challenges, innovations across vision, speech, language, decision, and search. And for the first time, it's possible for our application to interpret unstructured data in a human-like fashion and to be more deeply understand traditional data in the form of text. Now, together, search and AI creates a unique solution for finding value within your data. In the end, helping to engage your customers or transform products, empowering employees, and improve your operations. One of the services that Microsoft built for that is Azure Cognitive Search, before called as Azure Search. And how does that work? Well, it exists out of different steps. And the first step will be ingesting. We need to define a specific data source. Where is their data coming from? The next step will be, okay, we have all these PDF files, for example. We want to get more details out of that file. For example, which locations are described within the document, within the text, or what can we see on an image. This is all added within the Azure Search environment. And then on top of that, you have the Lucene search index, where you can actually just by asking your own items to it and figure out which documents are linked to your search term. I don't have more than this of slides, so because I want to go straight in some demos and actually show how you can do it yourself. Now, the cool thing about all these services is that you don't need to have any AI knowledge. You just need to have some software development skills and you can start going on. It all starts, of course, in the Azure Portal. So let's go to the Azure Portal, where I created 3 different resources. I'll start with the first one, which is a classic storage account, which contains, and I'll zoom in a bit, it'll be clear for everyone, which contains a container with some data. And in my container, I have a bunch of PDF files. There are 20 files because it's just as demo. I have a customer, for example, where we're doing this exact same case on 15,000 files, all documents that they have within their organization. So this is the first step, define your data source. The next step that you will have, back to resource group, is creating a search service. If you create a new search service, don't have a lot of items that you need to find. You select your resource group, you give it a name, you select your location, and then you select your pricing tier. Keep in mind, you can start from free. You have the basic also, but there's of course limitations on specific ones. I think it's free and basic. Your documents are limited to 65,000 characters. If you want more, you can go to standard that goes up to 4 million characters. So keep that in mind, even if you're doing a proof of concept, because you might be missing certain data. So I created my Azure Search service within the Microsoft Azure Portal. Okay, let's go to our service. And to make it very easy, there's a full wizard to help you through and setting all these things up. Now, the first part that we will need to do is import our data. So we can just click on import data, and then we can choose different kinds of data sources. Now, you see quite some different types of things. It's not only unstructured data. In our blob storage, we can save PDF files, PowerPoint, Word, Excel, images, MP3s, audio files, and so onwards. Just to add already, by default, Azure Search has no way of indexing audio files and video files, but there's a way around. We'll talk about it later on. The other part is more structured data. And we have a Cosmos DB, we have SQL Server on Azure, classic an Azure SQL database, or even table storage. And if you don't have data for yourself to work with, well, there's some sample data about real estate and hotels that you can use. But this is structured data already that is used to add extra information. But we will use my list of files. So we create a new blob storage. We give it a name, data source, blob. Yep. And then what kind of data do you want to extract? You can choose just to select the contents and metadata, or you select all metadata or storage metadata only. But in this case, we want to make really use of the content of our PDF files. And we also want to know what is the file path. So we need to select content and metadata. Then we have our parsing modes. This is depending on what your data source will be. Now, when you have a blob storage, well, then you could save many different items in it. It could be, as I said, PDF files or Word files, but it could as well be JSON documents. So based on what your CSV files. So based on the files that you've saved in it, well, here you can make a choice of what the parsing will need to be. So in this case, I'll just use the default mode. We need to connect our storage account to it. So I'll select storage. Select my container and click next. Can give our content. Yeah, we can even select a specific folder, but we'll leave it like that. Okay. And the next step is we've created our connection to our storage or ingestion mode. Now we want to enrich. Okay. Now the next step of this wizard will ask you, okay, I want to connect Azure Cognitive Services. Azure Cognitive Services is a set of many different kinds of AI services which are built for people who do not have any data science or deep learning skills at all, because the APIs are doing everything for you. There's speech to text, text to speech, of course, image analysis, text analytics, computer vision, video indexer, and so many more different items. Now, we just attach this one service to it. So I've created already on my Azure Portal the cognitive service, and now I can select it. You can use for your own purposes also the free limited enrichment, but you're limited to certain items. But for just trying it out, it's perfect. But I've created my own service here. Now, the next step is add enrichments. So within Azure Cognitive Search, you have 4 different types of objects, you could call it. You have your data source, where you configure where you're going to get your data from. The second item is your skill set. Within your skill set, you're actually configuring what kinds of transformations need to be done on the data to get to the enrichments that you want. Now, in this part, and that's the easy part of the wizard, of course, we can just do click, 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 and actually say just what we want. So we want to enable OCR on our pictures. We want to merge our text from our documents together with the OCR of the images, and it creates a new data field, in this case, merged content. And then we can just by clicking say what kind of cognitive services that we would like to call within our enrichment phase. So we have extracting people names, so you'll have an array of all the persons that are the names that you find in the documents. The same for organizations, specific for locations. Is it Brussels? Is it Europe? Is it Asia? Is it US? All these kind of things. What are the most important words within your document, the key phrases? It might be interesting to also know in what language the document is written. And based on that, you could use a translation function. Maybe you don't want your documents to be in French and Hindi and Spanish and Flemish and so onwards, but you all want to convert it to English. Now, that's perfectly possible by using the translate text. In my case here in this demo, all my documents are in English, so I don't need to do any translation. Another feature that is quite interesting, especially if you want to make your service at the end public, is that you want to identify personal information. And by identifying it, you create an object that will tell you where and what information can be found about a specific person. You could use this, for example, to remove or detract that information. This is all on text analytics. The next steps is what do we want to analyze on the pictures within our documents. And even there, okay, we have generating tags on the image. We want to have some kind of description of the image by a caption, and we want to identify celebrities, and we want to know who's famous which famous persons can we find within our documents. Now, a feature that was added only a couple of months ago, could be already a little bit longer, time flies, is a knowledge store. Now, with the knowledge store, where before Azure Search, everything was saved within their own service. And if you would like to do some more analytics on it, for example, you want to do some reporting on top of it, well, then you couldn't connect, well, you need to use the REST API to collect all the data and then do your reporting on it. Now, with connecting to the knowledge store, you can save all of the documents with enrichments to a separate blob storage. And in that way, you can use that as a data source for reporting, or even do for other machine learning projects that you would like to use. And the next one is target index. Now, we've already talked about the data source. You have your indexer. And now our last, we have the data store, the skill sets, and now we have our index. The index is the way how you are going to save all the now structured data into a kind of database. And here we're defining which fields you can use with the Azure Search APIs that are retrievable, which ones you can filter on, which one are sortable, facetable, and searchable. I'll show you in a bit also what facetable means. A good one to remember, filterable and searchable, they're not the same. Filterable is when you do a one-on-one match and you are looking for where the publication year equals to 2007 or not equals to 2007. And with the searchable fields, you can link an analyzer on it. Now, if you don't link an analyzer to it, the service will not be that good. Now, the analyzer could be the Lucene text analyzer. And this makes it possible, for example, that when you look for teach, that it will also look for teacher or taught and so on. And so it will keep in mind by lemmatization and going to the root words to figure out what you actually mean. Now, there's many different analyzers based on language. So keep that also in mind, that one field can only have one specific language analyzer. If you want to have many different languages within one field, then I wouldn't advise you to use any of the language-based analyzers, but you also have, I think it's on the bottom, the standard ones. To my opinion, you see each time Lucene and Microsoft. I prefer the Microsoft analyzers, they're quite good. And then the last one you see here on the end is a suggestion mode, and that's when you want to do it within your search field, for example, you want to do an auto suggest. And so when you start typing the first 3 characters of a word, it will give you a list, for example, of, if you would click this on here, of people. Now, you need to compare these documents or this database as some kind of database of JSON documents. Because as you will notice, we have all our fields where we can have specific types. So we can have strings, booleans, doubles, and so on. Also geography points, which might be very interesting. If we go back to one of the examples of a hotel, the hotel data, sample data, you could use this service within your booking.com website, for example, your own version, and based on your location of the user, it could already filter out specific hotels. So by default, because you're sending with you your coordinates. Now, back to the structure of the document. As you see, these are all single documents, but what we can have also, and that's in this case, for example, in our PII entities, this is the personal information identifier, we can have complex types. And this is a collection of complex types, which means we have an array of different objects again. And as you see, as I said before, the personal identifier, we have a type, what kind of information, where it's found within the document, and so on. And then we have different tags and captions and celebrities, the extra enrichment that has been created by the skill set. This is our indexer. The next part that we have, and that's our last one, is our indexer. Now with the indexer, we're going to configure when does this analyzing or enrichment needs to happen. Now in this case, it's once, but we could say every hour, figure out what is new on the blob storage. If I would select this, or every day, or on specific timings that you want, and we can even click on track deletion. And in that case, if a document would be removed, it can be marked also. You can do a soft delete or a hard delete from your Azure search index. The last step would be, in this case, is to click submit all these 4 different types. So we have our data source, we have our skill set, our indexer, and our indexer will be created, and then our indexer will be started and the files will start to be analyzed. I've done this before. It doesn't take so long. It only takes 2 minutes or something for 20 documents. And of course, it also depends on the amount of cognitive skills that you're using. If you're using a lot of skills, yeah, then it will take longer because it needs to send the data each time to the different services. So I did this already. And how does that look? Now let me go to quickly check the time also. If we look at our index, we see now we have 20 documents found and a total of storage of 4.81 megabyte. If I open this index and I just do a search and I don't search on anything, you will see that we get a list of all different JSON documents. So we will find 20 documents in total. But what we have is our content. There are full documents that has nothing has changed on. We'll scroll down. It's a big document. All right. We have our storage path, which this one is encrypted because it's used also as our key. We have people who are recognized within the document. We have organizations that are recognized within the documents. As you see, it's quite good. European Union, US government, Microsoft Azure sees it as an organization on itself. As this is a country, but okay. We go down, we see different locations. We have the key phrases, which words are important within our document. And then if we go down, this is our merged, our language, so it's an English document, and so on. Also, we see all the details. Now, this on itself is a REST API that you can use. There's not specific a front end. There is a demo app that you could use. I haven't set this one up right now, but with my own company, some of my people have built actually a front end on top of Azure Search, Azure Cognitive Search, and that could look something like this. So I just rebranded a little bit to the current conference. And now if I would look for Microsoft, for example, and I think my Visual Studio project is not running anymore. It is. Okay, I'll go to another demo. It's the same, doesn't matter. Our product is called Tafuta. So I look for Microsoft and I get a list of all the documents containing Microsoft. Now, what is interesting in this part is that this side here, as I said, some fields you can configure them as facetable. And a facetable item means when you search something, you also get back a list of items that's or for in this case, for example, organizations that you can use as filters. So I looked up now Microsoft, but as you notice, I searched for Microsoft, but it's highlighting Microsoft. This is another feature that you can configure. This is not possible within the wizard, but through the REST APIs, you can configure also synonyms. Now, As I said, this is done on PDF files, Word files, and so onwards. By default, it's not possible to do it on audio phrases and video files. Now, again, Microsoft has such nice services that you can use, for example, for speech to text or analyzing videos, that you can build somehow a flow to still get all that information. If I search, for example, for boot, in this example, you will already notice also the power of Lucene, and we see boot, but it also looks for boots. Now, this case you will see it's actually a JSON file, but behind it, it's an MP3 file. And by the speech-to-text technology of Microsoft, we were able to transcribe the full MP3 and automate the whole process. So when an MP3 file is added into a blob storage, it gets transcribed, a JSON file is created. That JSON file is added into our storage where all the data is that needs to be analyzed. That is picked up and added into our search index. And again, based on that information, purely on the text-to-speech information, we can add organizations again, locations, and so onwards. Another example that I wanted to show is sorry for that. Yeah, for the knowledge base on itself. Now, as I said, the data of the knowledge base can be saved within another storage account to do reporting on it. So there's a free template by Microsoft that can connect to your knowledge base and give you already a lot of information. So here we see the different kinds of entities that are recognized, getting nice key graph views also to get more information out of your data. And with that, I will go back to my slides and I would say, is there any questions? I know it's a lot of information. If you have more questions, please don't hesitate to send me if you have any question, don't hesitate to email me or send me a message on Twitter. Follow me if you want to know more about the global AI community. So thank you.
That was great, Sammy. Thank you so much for delivering that presentation for us. Cognitive search is so cool. I always think of it like the amalgamation of many of our cognitive APIs, but then this service, it like creates a search engine just for your data. So instead of, you know, Googling it or whatever, like you actually have data.